Just what is it that you want to do?
We want to be free to ride our machines without being hassled by the man. And we want to get loaded.
In the 60s, cinema went completely off the rails. Teenagers were tuning in, turning on, and dropping out, and the film industry wanted a piece of the action. The result? A wild explosion of films trying to capture the counterculture. Biker gangs on the rampage, LSD freakouts, psychedelic journeys, and cinematic experiments with soundtracks that turned up the chaos, the rebellion, and the fuzz.
From American drive-ins to London art house cinemas, the late 60s produced films that tried to capture the energy of a generation. Some of them were exploitation films, made to shock, thrill, and cash in on the counterculture. Others were more ambitious, experimental, or satirical, and have since become cult classics. But the thing that ties them together is the music: fuzz guitars, garage rock, and psychedelic sounds that reflected the creativity and sound of the era. In this video, we're highlighting 10 of the best soundtracks from this fascinating period of cinema. Let's begin. When it comes to biker films from the 60s, The Wild Angels is one of the most iconic, right up there with Easy Rider. Released by American International Pictures in 1966 and directed by Roger Corman, it starred Peter Fonda, Bruce Dern, and Nancy Sinatra.
They're wild and no angels, law-defying, getting their kicks from violence and torture. The Wild Angels.
But what really sets the movie apart is its soundtrack. Davey Allen and the Arrows delivered a fuzz-driven score that perfectly captured the rebellious vibe of the film. Davey Allen and the Arrows formed in the early 60s as an instrumental surf combo, achieving local success with tracks like Apache 65. But their big break came in 1966 when they were hired to provide the soundtrack for The Wild Angels. The centerpiece was blues theme. Davey Allen had just bought a fuzz box and graced the track with one of the filthiest fuzz guitar tones of 1966. Apart from being featured on the soundtrack of the film, the song was also released as a single, peaking at number 37 and remaining on the Billboard charts for 17 weeks. This would be the first of many soundtracks that the group recorded for American International Pictures. Over the next few years, Davey Allen and Company provided the soundtrack for several other films such as The Devil's Angels, Thunder Alley, and Born Losers. And they also released several studio albums, although none proved as successful as Blues Theme.
But nothing can change the shape of things. But nothing can change the shape of things to come.
Wild in the Streets was another film from American International Pictures that featured an outstanding soundtrack. While most 60s exploitation films offered just a couple of good songs surrounded by filler, this one is consistently strong from start to finish, which isn't surprising considering that most of the songs were written by Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil, the legendary songwriting duo behind hits for the Monkees, Paul Revere and the Raiders, and the Ronettes, among many others. Wild in the Streets featured actors like Christopher Jones, Shelley Winters, and Richard Pryor, and it's a satirical, over-the-top vision of youth rebellion. The storyline is a sort of speculative fiction meets black humor. In the film, teenagers take control of society after Christopher Jones's character rises to the presidency.
The President of the United States.
And anyone over 30 is sent to LSD rehabilitation camps.
We're gonna make 30 a mandatory retirement age. We're gonna psych them all out on LSD, babies.
At the center of the story is the fictional band Max Frost and the Troopers, whose soundtrack is very reminiscent of the sort of garage rock sound that characterized many American bands from that period. And it's strong enough to sit alongside all your records by garage groups like The Seeds, the Blues Magoos, or the Music Machine.
Good morning, people. Hey, gather round, you people. Got something to say. Getting old, looking old, that's a drag now. 14 on fire. Just listen to the music, it'll take you where you Well, 52% they write the TV shows for us. Well, 52% they design the clothes for us. If I could be a man. Make it well, wild, 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 wild in the streets.
The soundtrack was released by Tower Records and became a success, peaking at number 12 on the Billboard charts. And The Shapes of Things to Come was even released as a single and became a sizable hit, reaching number 22 and remaining on the American charts for several weeks.
There are changes lying ahead in every road, and there are new thoughts.
The Shapes of Things to Come eventually became a cult classic, and over the years the song has been covered by an incredibly diverse group of artists such as the Ramones, George Benson, Paul Revere and the Raiders, Slade and Janelle Monáe.
Nothing can change the shape of things to come.
I remember you in Hemlock Road in 1956. You're a baggy little leather boy with a smaller feature.
Hollywood wasn't the only film industry exploring the changing times. In Britain, several directors were also turning their attention to youth culture. And one of the very best examples is Performance by Donald Cammell, an innovative and experimental film that has since become a major cult favorite.
A film about death. And life. This is a film about vice. And versa. Performance.
The film stars Mick Jagger, Anita Pallenberg and James Fox, and it's a truly outstanding movie that explores both the underworld of East End gangsters and the drug-fueled psychedelic counterculture of late 60s London. Performance was shot in 1968, but due to censorship, it didn't see the light of day until 1970. But even though the film and its soundtrack took 2 years to be released, by 1970 the soundtrack still sounded completely fresh and groundbreaking. The soundtrack was produced by Jack Nitzsche, and it was one of the first records to openly experiment with Moog synthesizers, giving the soundtrack a truly avant-garde and innovative edge.
Dividing his creative time between his London home and recording studios, Jagger has been writing and supervising the recording of his first film score for the Warner Brothers release, Performance. Jagger makes great use of a unique device called a Moog synthesizer to write and then record his music. Named after its inventor, young New Yorker R.A. Moog, the synthesizer is an electronic machine capable of reproducing any sound in the world. By manipulating its keys and plugs, a skilled operator can program any sound desired.
Several of the tracks feature vocals by Mary Clayton, best known for her stunning vocals on Gimme Shelter by the Stones. And another musician who guests on several tracks is Ry Cooder, whose tasty bottleneck guitar work adds a raw, bluesy edge to several tracks. The standout track is the excellent Memo from Turner, featuring Mick Jagger on vocals, Ry Cooder on guitar, and Charlie Watts on drums. Jagger delivers the sharp, vicious lyrics with swagger and rides over a funky and driving beat, a combination that almost anticipates rap music with its spoken word style vocals over a rhythmic groove.
I see you down in San Antone on a hot and dusty night. You were eating eggs and sandwich with a black man there through his night.
And Ry Cooder's bluesy bottleneck guitar adds a dark, unsettling edge, giving the track a raw, aggressive feel. The film wasn't a success at the time, but over the years it underwent a critical reappraisal, with many critics now regarding it as a cult classic of British cinema. In an interview a few years ago, director Quentin Tarantino praised it as one of the best films of all time.
I need my freedom, not your sympathy. Set me free.
Just like Performance, another British film that became a cult classic is Privilege, released in 1967. The film was directed by Peter Watkins, and it starred former Manfred Mann vocalist Paul Jones, alongside British top model Jean Shrimpton.
Privilege. Slate one, take one. The start of a new experience in the cinema. Privilege. A new insight on a new kind of idol.
Privilege is presented as a fake documentary about a pop star named Steve Shorter, who becomes the biggest celebrity in the country and whose image and music are soon manipulated by the church and the state to control rebellious youth.
Stephen Shorter, pop singer. He's not so much a person as a puppet whose strings are pulled for a scheme of total nightmare.
The film's tone is satirical and speculative, and it's set in a near-future society where mass media and pop culture are used as tools of conformity. The music for Privilege was composed by Mike Leander, with contributions from songwriter and producer Mark London. Leander was one of the most prolific producers and arrangers in 60s Britain, and he's well known among Beatles fans for coming up with the string arrangement on the song She's Leaving Home from Sgt. Pepper's. The music in the film isn't just background, it's part of the story itself, reflecting the themes of celebrity, manipulation, youth rebellion, and media spectacle. And the real standouts are the tracks sung by Paul Jones.
And while you sleep, I softly weep. I've been a bad, bad boy.
I've Been a Bad, Bad Boy was even released as a single, and it became a top 5 hit, peaking at number 3. Even though the film wasn't a box office smash, it's since been reassessed and now stands as a cult classic of British cinema. Both the film and its soundtrack made a major impression on 70s artists like Patti Smith, who covered a song from the soundtrack on her 1978 album Easter. Her version of Privilege, Set Me Free, was released as the album's second single, and it reached number 72 on the British charts and number 13 in Ireland. Beyond the Valley of the Dolls was a satirical musical drama directed by Russ Meyer, with a screenplay co-written by future film critic Roger Ebert. It was an unofficial and campy sequel to the 1967 melodrama Valley of the Dolls, although it bears little resemblance to its predecessor.
Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, a Russ Meyer production. The wildest, craziest, funniest, farthest out musical horror sex comedy ever released, says the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner.
Shot in 1969 and released in 1970, the film follows the story of a fictional all-girl band called the Carrie Nations, and it offers a psychedelic, over-the-top exploration of fame, excess, and the darker side of Hollywood. The film's soundtrack featured a couple of songs by the Strawberry Alarm Clock, best known for their 1967 hit Incense and Peppermints. And it also featured 6 songs by the fictional band the Carrie Nations, who sound like a cross between Jefferson Airplane and the sort of American garage bands featured on the well-known Nuggets compilation. All of the songs by the Carrie Nations were written by Stu Phillips. However, the members of the fictional band neither sang nor played their own instruments in the film. The vocals for the lip-synced songs were performed by Lynn Carey together with Barbara Robinson, the lead singer of Peanut Butter Conspiracy, a psychedelic band from Los Angeles. Beyond the Valley of the Dolls was panned by critics when it was originally released, but it became a box office success. And the film developed a cult following in subsequent decades and earned some critical reappraisal for its satirical and metafictional elements. And it remains one of the craziest and most over-the-top films from that period.
Going down to the strip tonight. I'm not on a stay-home trip tonight.
Riot on Sunset Strip was a low-budget exploitation film released by American International Pictures in 1967. The film capitalized on the real-life Sunset Strip curfew riots of late 1966 aiming to capture the youth culture clash between the hippie movement and the establishment.
But now it's just a place for black and white cars to race. It's causing a riot. It's causing a riot.
But the highlight of the film was the music, which featured prominent garage groups from that period such as the Chocolate Watch Band and the Standells. But the standout track of the film was undoubtedly the song that gave the movie its title, Riot on Sunset Strip. With its powerful sound and fast-paced rhythm, the track perfectly captured the garage rock sound of the period, and it's also frequently cited as an example of 60s proto-punk.
Even the parents are beginning to scare because of the siren on our streets. That used to be me.
At the time, the Standells were riding high after a successful American tour with the Rolling Stones and the massive success of their 1966 hit Dirty Water. The song Riot on Sunset Strip was even released as a single, but it failed to match the success of Dirty Water, only reaching number 133 on the Billboard charts. The film wasn't a critical success, but it performed reasonably well at the box office. Over time, it has earned a cult following, largely thanks to its music and its snapshot of 60s youth culture. Just like The Wild Angels, the trip was directed by Roger Corman, and it also starred Peter Fonda and Bruce Dern. Released during the Summer of Love in 1967, the film was written by Jack Nicholson, and it follows Peter Fonda as a young man experiencing his first LSD trip.
I'm Peter Fonda. We've just finished making a movie dealing with the most talked about subject of the day, LSD.
The trip became one of the most successful releases by American International Pictures, and it featured many of the same personnel who would work on Easy Rider later in 1969. The soundtrack was provided by the Electric Flag, a band led by guitarist Mike Bloomfield, who was already well known for his work with the Paul Butterfield Blues Band and for his guitar contributions to some of Bob Dylan's earliest electric recordings. The soundtrack blends styles like improvisational jazz, psychedelia, blues rock, and electronic music. And just like the previously featured performance, it includes some of the earliest use of the Moog synthesizer on a rock record. The soundtrack was also supposed to include a song by Gram Parsons and the International Submarine Band, who are seen as the group rehearsing in a club at the start of the film. The International Submarine Band were one of the earliest country rock groups, and the group even recorded a song called Lazy Days to be used in the film. But director Roger Corman felt that the song wasn't psychedelic enough for the scene in which the band appeared, and it was ultimately replaced by music from the Electric Flag. Depending on who you ask, the trip is either seen as a cheap exploitation film or a landmark of 60s counterculture cinema. The truth is, it sits somewhere in between, but above all, it remains a fascinating time capsule of the Summer of Love in 1967.
Columbia Pictures presents the Monkees. Mickey, Davy, Mike, Peter in Head. That's right, Head. Head is the most extraordinary adventure western comedy love story, mystery drama, musical documentary satire ever filmed.
Head was the Monkees' attempt to break free from their bubblegum image, and what they delivered was one of the strangest and most subversive studio films of the 60s. And that's the main reason why the film was a complete commercial disaster. Audiences were expecting a light-hearted Monkees movie, but instead they got a surreal and fragmented trip through pop culture, media manipulation, and the manufactured nature of celebrity itself. The film was co-written by Jack Nicholson and directed by Bob Rafelson, and it featured cameos from figures like Frank Zappa.
The song was pretty white.
Well, so am I. What can I tell you?
You've been working on your dancing, though.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've been rehearsing it. Glad you noticed that.
Yeah, it doesn't leave much time for your music.
And Victor Mature. Head blended absurd comedy, psychedelic visuals, and sharp social commentary, and it was full of surprises, impossible to predict, and unforgettable in its strangeness.
The Monkees movie Head, which I believe is 1969, Head is a fucking masterpiece, if you ask me. That would definitely be in my top 5 movies in 1969, but even with, I gave this, really serious consideration.
The soundtrack was equally experimental, blending psychedelic pop, orchestral passages, and even tape loop collages. One of the standout tracks is Porpoise Song, written by Carole King and Jerry Goffin. This is, in my opinion, not only one of the Monkees' best recordings, but also one of the finest psychedelic songs of 1968. Other highlights include Circle Sky, penned by Mike Nesmith himself,
And it looks like we've made it once again. Yes, it looks like we've made it once again.
and a couple of compositions by Peter Tork.
Something doesn't change. There is only one.
As previously stated, Head was a commercial disaster when it was originally released in 1968. But over time, it's come to be seen as a groundbreaking piece of pop art, praised for its daring editing, biting satire, and a sense of self-awareness that was quite ahead of its time.
Psych-out. Dick Clark presents the hallucinatory world of the Flower Children as they parade up and down the streets of San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury district. Psych-out was filmed entirely on location in hippie heaven. See the mind blowers in action. Watch the psychedelic dropouts as they psych out. Psych out. Psych out.
Psych-out was shot in 1967 and released in 1968, and it was another slice of psychedelic cinema from American International Pictures, directed by Richard Rush and produced by Dick Clark. It starred Susan Strasberg, Jack Nicholson, and Bruce Dern, and followed a young runaway searching for her brother in San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury scene. Just like many exploitation films from that period, Psych-out was made to cash in on the hippie craze, but it featured an excellent soundtrack, with bands like the Strawberry Alarm Clock and the Seeds. The Strawberry Alarm Clock contributed 3 songs to the film. And the Seeds added the track Two Fingers Pointing at You. Psych-out wasn't a big box office success, but it did well enough for a low-budget counterculture film of its time, largely thanks to its music, colorful visuals, and the growing popularity of Jack Nicholson. Even though it was clearly made to cash in on the hippie craze, it's now appreciated as a vivid time capsule of the Haight-Ashbury era.
This year, the judges of the Cannes Film Festival presented the award Best Film by a New Director to Easy Rider. It's the story of a man who went looking for America and couldn't find it anywhere.
Easy Rider is widely regarded as the culmination of what many of these earlier films had been leading to. Movies like The Wild Angels, The Trip, and Psych-out had already explored the sounds, the style, and the spirit of the counterculture, but Easy Rider brought it all together. It wasn't just a film about the counterculture, it was made from within it. And it also starred several of the same familiar faces from those earlier films such as Peter Fonda, Jack Nicholson, and Dennis Hopper. The soundtrack featured music from some of the era's leading bands and artists like The Byrds, Jimi Hendrix, Steppenwolf, and The Band, and it completely redefined how rock music could be used in film. In many ways, those earlier movies set the stage, and Easy Rider was the moment when the music, the movement, and the message all came together. Unfortunately, I can't play excerpts from the soundtrack here because of copyright restrictions, but you're probably already familiar with most of these tracks anyway. While Easy Rider is often hailed as a landmark of 60s counterculture and independent cinema, over time, some critics and viewers have called it overrated, arguing that it's more significant for what it represented than for its actual storytelling or filmmaking craft. Still, most film historians agree that its influence on American cinema is undeniable. It helped usher in the new Hollywood era, showing studios that low-budget, youth-oriented films could succeed. And like most of the films featured in this video, it remains a fascinating time capsule of a turbulent and transformative decade. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments which of these soundtracks is your favorite, and feel free to mention any other rock or psychedelic soundtracks from that era that you think could have made the cut. See you next time.